Hello, guys, how are you doing? Today, I wanted to talk about the truth about boredom. Why does boredom feel uncomfortable, for example? Because obviously, when you're bored, you want to play video games, maybe you want to eat junk food, maybe you want to watch a movie, maybe you want to doom scroll to TikTok, Instagram. When we feel bored, we want to follow our cravings and our desires, and that's where most people give in. But boredom, there's a saying that goes, boredom is a sign of healing. When you're actually bored, you need to use that to your advantage. You need to use that to actually grow in life, and you need to use that to become the best version of yourself in life. Why? Because boredom is a temporary feeling. Boredom doesn't last forever. Boredom is only here to tell us, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to follow your cravings? Do you want to follow your desires? Do you want to do whatever you want to do? Or are you going to go and just play video games, eat junk food, watch porn? Boredom is uncomfortable. Most people, they don't want to sit and just do nothing. Most people wouldn't, go outside, breathe nature, relax, meditate for 5 minutes. Or even, let's say, for example, if you sit and you stare at a wall. If you're bored and you sit and you stare at a wall, what's the benefit? I'll give you an example. So when you stare at a wall for 30 minutes, there's a thing called the DNM, the default network mode, which is something that's part of the brain. And when this gets activated, it allows the brain to have some rest. And when you rest your brain, this is crucial for social interacting, mental research, learning new things, reading, writing, memory. When you stare at a wall, it's so boring. You're not doing anything, but your brain is actually recovering from dopamine. It's recovering from stimulation. You're giving your chance to rest. You're giving the brain some chance to rest. And the DNM, the default network mode, actually resets itself. So when that happens, you become a lot more dopamine sensitive. What does that mean? Okay, so before you stare at a wall, if you were to go if you were to grab your phone and you were to go on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and just scroll, and you would probably feel that dopamine, but you wouldn't notice it. You might feel it, but you wouldn't notice it. After you finish staring at a wall for 30 minutes, because your default network mode is resetted, so your mind is refreshed, and because you are a lot more dopamine sensitive, if you were to scroll through Instagram, TikTok, or anything, your mind would feel clear after 30 minutes after staring at a wall. So if you were to scroll through it, you would feel the effects of dopamine. This is called dopamine sensitive. Most of the time when we are bored, we don't want to sit with discomfort. I'd rather play video games. I'd rather eat junk food. I'd rather just, listen to music. I'd rather just doom scroll. I would rather do things that feel so comfortable, feel so nice, and feel so easy. But what does boredom teach us? And I'm going to tell you that. Boredom teaches you have to have discipline. Boredom teaches you have to be patient. Boredom teaches you there's no growth in life unless you replace it with something more productive. Because automatically, and this is the average human, most humans, as I said, when they get bored and when they feel bored, they want to play video games, they want to eat junk food, they want to follow their desires, they want to follow their cravings, they want to do whatever they can find laid in front of them. When I'm bored, I want to play video games. When I'm bored, I want to just eat junk food. When I'm bored, I just want to listen to music. I want to doom scroll to TikTok, Instagram, I just want to relax. But pause for a second. And I want to ask this question to everyone. When you are bored in life and, your mind tells you, you know what? Go and do something. Do you have to have discipline at that moment or not? Yes, you do. Because, if your feelings control your mind when you're bored, then you are not in a good position. Because your feelings will tell you, hey, I feel bored. let me just go to my comfort zone. Let me play video games. Let me eat junk food. Let me do whatever I want to do. Your boredom will tell you to do the things that you feel like doing. This is the feeling. But if you can control your mind while you are bored, and you can condition yourself, hey, you know what? Boredom feels uncomfortable, but let me exercise even though I feel bored. Let me go outside for a walk even though I feel bored. Let me be productive even though I feel bored. When you are bored, this is your sign to structure your lifestyle and do something. When you are bored, it means you have a lot of idle time throughout the day. When you are bored, it just means your day just feels kind of a bit boring and you have nothing to do. But try to replace it with something productive. Exercise, eating healthy, fitness, something that will allow you to grow in life, and something that teaches you, hey, you can become the best version of yourself if you are productive with yourself and if you are productive with what you do. You know, because boredom is uncomfortable, because when you're bored and you're just sitting there, I don't really like that feeling. I don't know, man. Can I do it? I don't know. I don't know if I can do it, man. This feeling is too intense. This feeling is too uncomfortable. I really think I can't do it. So automatically, when you feel that feeling of boredom, it feels uncomfortable. Why does it feel uncomfortable? Because you feel like you have nothing to do. When you're not watching TikTok, when you're not, scrolling through Instagram, through YouTube, when you're not playing video games, when you're not doing things that give you a quick dopamine, and you try to do things like exercise, fitness, walking, things that are naturally less stimulating and it feels boring, that's why it feels uncomfortable, because of dopamine. When you, for example, let's say, when you play video games, for example, your dopamine goes way above your baseline. And then after you finish playing video games, your dopamine goes way below your baseline, leaving a person feeling drained, tired, exhausted, not the most energetic, and he doesn't feel like his best self. Like, you feel completely tired in your brain. Because when you play a video game, you get a dopamine spike and then it crashes below your baseline. So that's gonna make a person feel unmotivated. That's gonna make a person feel drained. That's gonna make a person feel exhausted. That's gonna make a person feel tired. However, if you are bored and you feel like doing it but you don't do it, for example, you exercise, you eat healthy, you do the things that feel boring, it's gonna be uncomfortable at first. Obviously, it's gonna be boring at first. But remember, boredom is a sign of healing. Over time, if you keep doing the things that feel boring, there's growth in it. You will naturally start to enjoy it. Your brain will naturally start to give you more natural dopamine, and you will actually start to feel more focused. You will start to feel a lot more energetic. You will start to feel a lot more great, and you will start to feel like yourself even more better. But that takes time, because if you want to grow in life, if you want to become the best version of yourself in life, if you want to feel the best, if you want to do the best, if you want to be the best, you have to go through moments of boredom. When you're bored, you have to keep yourself productive. When you're bored, it's going to feel low. It's going to feel stressful. It's going to feel exhausting. It's going to feel tired. But you have to teach your mind that, hey, I am bored, but no matter what, let me keep myself productive. Let me just exercise. Let me eat healthy. Let me do something that's good for my mind, for my mood, and for my mental health. Boredom, for example. How can boredom lead to creativity? I'll tell you how. Most of the time, when we are bored, when I'm bored, for example, I want to play video games, I want to eat junk food, I want to scroll through social media. We do things that are not productive. We do things that are not going to benefit us in our present time and in our future time. And if we constantly just doom scrolling and watching reels, we're getting tons of dopamine, and that dopamine, it literally exhausts our brain. It tires our brain so much that we feel so tired, we feel so exhausted, we feel like, I have no energy, I don't know if I can do it, I don't know if it's gonna work, I really have no energy. So you get tired, you get exhausted, and naturally you just feel like you cannot do it anymore. That's what happens when you watch a lot of things or do a lot of things that give you a dopamine. But if you pause for a second, if you pause and say, okay, you know what? I'm bored, but I'm not going to watch Instagram. I'm not going to use Instagram. I'm not going to use TikTok. I'm not going to use YouTube. I'm not going to use social media. I'm not going to doom scroll. I'm not going to watch a movie. I'm not going to watch porn. I'm not going to eat something unhealthy. I'm going to try to do something like fitness, exercise, meditate, exploring, going outside, learning a new skill. I'm going to try to do something productive while I feel bored. At first, it's going to suck, but over time, if you keep telling yourself to do something productive while you feel bored, sometimes that moment of boredom while you try to learn something productive can actually lead to something that you enjoy. And over time, that thing that you enjoy can actually lead to creativity over time. You start being creative with what you learn, you start being creative with what you do, you start building productivity, you start seeing yourself being more productive with what you do, and you start seeing things starting to work. And over time, when you always teach yourself to do something productive when you're bored, you actually give yourself a chance to learn something new, to unlock a new skill, to learn something that you never knew about, to be more productive with your time. So in your present time and in your future time, because you're doing something productive while you're bored, over time you will learn. Yes, it will suck. Yes, it will feel boring. Yes, it will feel like, I don't know, man. I don't want to invest a lot of time and energy into doing something boring. But you have to understand that boredom is a sign of healing, and boredom will also lead to growth. In life, let me give you an example, right? A lot of people who have discipline, the noun of discipline is doing what you know you should do instead of what you want to do. A lot of people who have discipline, at some point in their life, they get bored. Sometimes they get bored with just exercising, with just fitness, with having a productive lifestyle and all that stuff, especially for new beginners. For anyone who doesn't have self-discipline and is trying to practice self-discipline, that feeling hits a lot more stronger. I don't know, this isn't really working for me. I'm not really enjoying it. I want to go back to my comfortable zone. I want to come back to my comfortable lifestyle. We have that thought, I don't know if I really want to continue with this sort of lifestyle that feels boring, but I think I'd rather want to come back to what I enjoy the most. But with discipline, it does lead to boredom. Discipline is boring. Discipline is hard. Discipline is uncomfortable. We don't like the feeling of boredom. Most humans, they don't like feeling bored. Why? Because feeling bored isn't nice. When you feel bored, it feels like there's nothing to do with your time. It feels like, like you feel like you need to do, you feel like you have to do something to give yourself a quick rush. And that's what most people do. When they feel bored, to get that immediate rush, to get that immediate comfort, to get that immediate relief, they jump into video games, they jump into pornography, they jump into, doom scrolling, listening to music for hours, just doing things to numb that feeling of boredom. But when you teach yourself to have discipline, especially very important during boredom, automatically when you are bored, you're going to tell yourself, you know what? Hey, I need to condition myself. I need to condition myself to do something productive. That thing that's productive could be, for example, exercise, going outside, learning a new skill, learning a language, reading a book, meditating, doing something that's really, really challenging your mind and you really challenging yourself. It's obviously hard. It's not easy. But over time, you will see growth. You will see growth when you try to learn something new, when you try to put yourself through something that you've never did. Boredom teaches you that if you want to grow in life, you have to put in the effort to learn. And once you put in the effort to learn, you will learn. Because boredom takes time. Boredom is, as I said, boring, it's stressful, it's hard. The most successful people in life, they had to sacrifice their desires. They had to go through boredom. They had to go through moments where everything felt so dull, so empty, so boring in life. And obviously, we're not saying your life has to be boring 24/7. We're not saying you have to have discipline 24/7. You can have a bit of enjoyment there and there and there. The problem is when most people feel bored, the first solution that they find is, hey, you know what? Let me play video games. Let me get some dopamine rush. Let me eat junk food. Let me watch a movie. They think about the most easiest options that's right in front of them instead of opting out for the hard ones. That's the problem. When you have boredom and instead of trying to do something more challenging and more hard, you try to do something that's so easy, such as playing a video game, for example. And playing a video game definitely isn't good. You know? Actually, if you play video games a lot, that's not good. If you play in moderation, that's fine. Like, everything can have its ups and downs. If you watch too much movies, that's not good for you. If you watch it once in a while, especially after a productive day and after training or whatever it is, just something as a small reward or a small snack on the side, that's fine. But the problem with boredom is when we do feel bored, we tend to numb that feeling by just doing something that gives us dopamine, that gives us comfort, that gives us pleasure. Most people who are in the comfort zone, and the difference between someone who steps out of their comfort zone and in their zone, I'll explain it. When someone is in their comfort zone and they're experiencing a boredom, that person will immediately try to satisfy that craving of boredom. He'll try to satisfy his own desires. He'll try to play video games. He'll try to watch porn. He'll try to listen to music, watch TikTok videos, doom scroll. He will do things that are so easy and that gives him dopamine because he doesn't want to step out of his comfort zone while he's bored. He doesn't want to do something that's uncomfortable. But the person who steps out of his comfort zone and does things even while he feels bored, there's growth in that. There's growth in that. He exercises while he feels bored. He eats a healthy diet while he feels bored. He has a productive lifestyle while he feels bored. He studies while he feels bored. He does it while he feels bored, and he keeps going no matter how he feels. And this is life. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep trying. You just have to keep putting in your best effort. It takes time, but over time, there is growth in that. And you will see progress in that, and you will definitely, most recommendedly, you will see changes in that. Many people avoid being alone with their thoughts, right? Why do people avoid being alone with their thoughts? Because the reason why many people avoid being alone with their thoughts is because when they experience a thought about something during boredom, instead of sitting with that thought, most people want to act out on that thought, you know? And usually the brain will probably try to tell you something like, and this is how the brain is, usually your brain will try to tell you, you know what, just go do something comforting, just go do something easy, just try to relax yourself, you know, just play some video games, just eat some junk food, just watch movies for hours. Now, obviously, as I say, there's nothing wrong with those activities. The problem is when you can't control the feeling of boredom and you let boredom control you to do the things that you want to do. While instead you should condition your brain to do the things that you don't feel like doing. If you feel bored, just get up, go outside, walk for 5 minutes. If you feel bored, stare at a wall for 30 minutes every single day. That will increase dopamine sensitivity. That will reduce you know, your mental health problems, lack of focus. That will improve dopamine regulation. That will improve mood. And in fact, when you stare at a wall for 30 minutes every single day, as I said, it increases dopamine sensitivity. It improves mood. It improves dopamine regulation. And over time, you know those you know when you work and when you read and when you study, it feels boring. If you were to stare at a wall literally for like, let's say 15-30 minutes, just stare at a wall for 15 to 30 minutes, no phone, no music, no distraction, no looking up and down, no looking right and left, no looking sideways. Your eyes just simply staring, no looking at the timer. Your eyes are simply just staring at the wall for like 15-30 minutes. If you were to do that, let's say for example before work, or let's say if you were to do that before exercising, or let's say you were to do that before you're studying for an exam, I promise you, you know what you're doing is you're exhausting your default network mode system. And when you do that, your brain naturally goes through a process of resetting itself. And that increases dopamine sensitivity, and it makes your mind so clear. You feel a lot more focused. It's going to feel so boring. You're going to be like, ugh, man, why am I staring at a wall for 30 minutes? You might have that thought while you're staring at a wall for 30 minutes. But after you finish staring at a wall for 30 minutes, it will clear your mind so much. You will literally able to focus. And I promise you, it will help you with your exams, with your studies, with your exercise. And it is going to be boring. But it's better to do that than to satisfy your craving. And boredom is actually so good for growth. You know, when you're bored, you just need to know how to control that feeling with something productive. Because most people, what happens to most people is they get trapped in boredom, and because they don't know how to deal with it, they just do whatever they want to do. But if you write like a protocol boredom plan, or if you structure, okay, whenever I feel bored, this is what I have to do, and you train your brain to do something productive while you're bored, then automatically you're turning your boredom into growth. So you're going to do something productive instead of something unproductive. So when I'm bored, I'm not going to listen to my brain and just watch dopamine videos or play video games. Because I've trained my brain, I'm going to exercise, or I've trained my brain to read during boredom, or I've trained my brain to meditate during boredom, or I've trained my brain to do something very productive during boredom. You just have to train and condition your brain and have a plan on what you should do when you're bored. This is where most people get tapped out. When people get bored, they do things that will make them lazy in the future. You know, they'll probably like, and when that happens, it becomes a problem, which isn't good for our mind, which isn't good for our mental health. And over time, it will lead to consequences, and those consequences are going to feel negative. But you have to understand how boredom works. It's not easy, it's not uncomfortable, it's hard at times, you will go through battles, but you just have to learn that boredom is a sign of healing. Boredom will allow you to grow in life. Boredom will allow you to be the best version of yourself and really feel like you can do it in life. Thank you so much for watching my live video. That's all what I have to say. Just understand, boredom is a sign of healing. Boredom is growth. If you want to grow in life, walk with boredom. Have a plan. Execute a plan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another time. Goodbye.